Yo, what is up? It is the Fantasy Bros. Today we're talking trades that you can make ahead of week 6 in order to try to win your league. Before we start though, consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers, so we just really appreciate it. All right, anyway, let's talk buys and sells ahead of week 6. Aaron, who's your first buy?
So I think you can buy pretty low for this guy. So my first buy is going to be Keenan Allen. Of course, he's coming off of a hamstring injury. He is practicing this week, and it looks like he might play at least on a limited basis in this game. Uh, I wouldn't go too crazy buying him because, of course, once you have a hamstring injury, it is likely or possible to re-injure it. But if you looked at his stats from the first game, he only played like 3 drives and he had 4 catches for 66 yards already. He's Justin Herbert's favorite target, and I think you can get him way cheaper than what his draft cost was this year. So if you can buy him on the low, and just this is especially for 4 PPR and half PPR, not so much standard because he typically makes his points from catches and yards, not touchdowns. So primarily PPR, but if you could buy low on this guy, I think you would give your team a huge boost.
Yeah, I definitely think the play is to buy low. Wouldn't give up too much for him, but I mean his value is only going to go up from here, and he's been successful with Herbert his whole career. So I agree with that. And my first buy is Chris Godwin. In half PPR, he hasn't reached 10 points yet, which means you could probably buy him pretty low. I just acquired him. I traded AJ Dillon and Romeo Dobbs. So, yeah, if you can make a trade like that, then I think you should buy Chris Godwin. He's coming off an injury, obviously, and he's looked to trend upward in the offense, and I think that'll continue. I think he's necessary to this offense. I think Tom Brady really likes looking his way whenever he's actually, on the field. He's, increasing snaps as he's come back from his injury, and if he can stay healthy, I think that he has potential to be like your wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. So buy him off like 3 9-point games in a row, in my opinion.
Yep, love that buy. My next one's going to be Diontae Johnson. Uh, he has still an insane target share. I know people got worried last week when he only had 4 targets, and they were wondering how he would react to Kenny Pickett. Well, Kenny Pickett's first start, he came out with 13 targets, which led the team yet again. Pittsburgh's defense is absolutely abysmal, so they're going to have to throw a lot every single week. They've just played the Bills defense, who's top 5 defense in the league, and Kenny Pickett had over 320 passing yards in that game. So I think you're going to see that a lot because their defense can stop anybody. Diontae Johnson has the second most targets in the league without a touchdown. So I do think you'll see positive touchdown regression coming, especially with how much they throw the ball because Najee and this has been really ineffective in the run game. So especially in PPR leagues, I would try to buy low on Diontae Johnson just because his targets are through the roof. And everybody's hyping up George Pickens right now, so I think you could get Diontae Johnson a little cheaper.
Yeah, I think that you can get him really low right now. I mean, people are really worried about, the rookie quarterback, the new rookie receiver coming in, but he's still the most talented wide receiver on the team, in my opinion. And I think that if you're in some kind of PPR league, I'm buying him because, he gets a lot of targets and receptions, and I think the points will come. Like, I'm looking to trade players away like Jacoby Myers, who's had a good start to the season. I think I would make that flip, like just straight up. Even personally, I would trade Lazard away for him, who's had a lot of touchdowns to start the year. Let's see. Who else? Like Romeo Dobbs, I would try to maybe package him to try to get Diontae. So I think you can buy him really low, players like that. People are really down on him. So my next buy is Travis Etienne. Now, this is a player that has been trending upward in snaps throughout the year. He's just passed James Robinson. In the past 2 weeks, he's passed James Robinson in snap share. His efficiency has been going up throughout the year, and his efficiency metrics over the year with yards per carry and yards per touch, all these metrics are looking better than James Robinson as of recent. And if you look over the total year, he has a higher avoided tackle rate, rush EPA per snap, rushing success rate, yards per carry and yards per touch. His yards per carry on the year is at 4.89, and his yards per touch is 7.75 compared to James Robinson's 4.14 and 5. So I like those numbers. And on top of that, Travis Etienne has the most rush yards in the NFL with no touchdown. So I think there's going to be some positive regression to be had in the touchdown department, even though you may say that he's not the goal line back. He still should probably have a touchdown or two given the workload that he's getting. And hopefully if his workload continues to increase and the Jags can get it back together, the touchdowns will come for Etienne. So I think I like him as a buy off of a pretty slow start to the year.
Yep. I agree there. Hopefully, for my sake, the Jags turn it around. So
yeah.
Another one of my buys is going to be A.J. Brown. So this guy started the year off red hot and has kind of cooled over the past few weeks. I know he just played Arizona. Look, I wouldn't be worried about that game at all. Arizona shuts down the number one receiving option every single game they play. I don't care what anyone tells you. They shut them down. Cooper Kupp, 4 for 44. Luckily, he got a 20-yard rushing touchdown, but to save his day. But that was his worst receiving outing by far. Devontae Adams, 2 for 12. DJ Moore, I think, barely got to 50 yards. A.J. Brown, 3 for 32, and 2 of those catches was on the first drive. After that, shut down. Now, granted, tertiary and options, you want to play against the Cardinals, but I would go for A.J. Brown, see if you can buy him low. He's still on a very good offense, and Jalen Hurts has improved vastly passing the ball, and he's still getting targeted pretty heavily. So if you can buy low off of a couple bad games from him, I definitely would.
Yeah, it might be hard to get him just because of, how hot of a start he got off to, but he is the elite of the elite. He's in the top 5 category, in my opinion. He's in the talks, somewhere around there. So
he's 5th in the NFL in receiving yards currently.
Yeah, so he's elite, man. So if you can acquire him on a great offense, on a team that's winning, and scoring a lot, I mean, absolutely acquire him. While a lot of these players that we're going to mention are just elite players that are not getting as many yards or touchdowns as we expect them to based on their talent, their workload, and a lot of it comes down to just bad luck to start the year. We have a small sample size of 5 games, so go acquire these elite players who are having, a rough start or a rough couple of game stretches, because this might be the only time you can buy a lot of these players. Their talent is going to win out in the end, and players like A.J. Brown and a couple more we'll be talking about, Chris Godwin, and then my next one, who I'm going to go into, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I totally believe in the talent with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and if you look at what he's done, he got off to a strong start, so it may be hard to buy him. However, his last 2 games have been a bit of a disappointment with 10 points and 3.8 in half PPR. Last game, he only had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 18 yards, which is very disappointing. However, he was limited in snaps, and if the owner of Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't know that, then maybe you could buy low, given that they may be panicking a little bit. He's going into a bye, so if you could you can even talk him into, Jameson Williams coming in. There's a lot to worry about with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's injured, but this is a good buy low opportunity off of a limited snap game that I think you could capitalize on. Again, I believe in the talent, and I think he's in the elite category, and their offense is, had a bad week, but their offense is elite as well.
And their defense sucks. So they're going to be scoring a lot of points.
And their offensive line is amazing. Goff can get it done with that offensive line, in my opinion.
That actually leads me perfectly into my next buy, which is going to be DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, like we just mentioned, plays for the Lions offensive line, which I'm not sure if it still does, but leads the NFL in yards before contact on rushes at 3.5 yards.
It's insane.
So you're telling me you're already getting 3.5 yards before you even make contact? That's insane, especially with someone of Swift's explosiveness. He was getting involved in the passing game a little bit more than we had seen in years past, which was nice. The part that sucked was that Jamal Williams was largely the goal line back.
Yeah.
So that's something that's a little unfortunate. But a guy that's explosive as Swift, who has been injured, missed a few games, now is on a bye week. If he's on someone's bench that is 1-4, 0-5, maybe even 2-3, and is desperate for a win this week, you could make a pretty decent trade offer, maybe a Jeff Wilson or a Najee Harris if you're lucky, someone like that, and try to pry him off their bench pretty cheap, and then hold him until he's healthy and ready to come back.
Yeah, I mean, it is true about the goal line work being unfortunate. But with the injury concern and the competition with Jamal Williams and the bad game that the Lions just had, hopefully you can buy low on that and trade a couple of those players, package them maybe with a receiver or something, and get who, in my opinion, is the most talented back for the Lions, which is one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. I like acquiring those players. So my next buy is Christian Kirk, another Jaguar, off of a horrible performance from the Jaguars. That's why I got two on here. They got beat by the Houston Texans, which is not predictable, but I'm hoping they can get it back together. Christian Kirk got off to a strong start, and now people are out. I'm seeing people online are out on Christian Kirk, but I'm not. And I do believe in what happened at the start of the year. He did have 3 touchdowns in his first 3 games, which that's hard to sustain. I agree with that. But I think the target share last game was an anomaly. I think that he's going to go back to his 9 to 10 targets a game. And I think we've seen coaches say that they want to get him the ball more and target him more. And the good news is that they lost when they didn't target Christian Kirk. So I believe it. I believe that they're going to go back to him more. I think he's the most valuable weapon on that offense, honestly, at this point. And they're going to try to get it in his hands. So off of 2 awful games in half PPR, 7.3 and 1.6, you absolutely can buy him right now. He should be very cheap. Yep,
agreed. My next buy is going to be T. Higgins. So the Bengals' passing offense hasn't looked great for most of the year. If you own Jamar Chase, you know what I mean. He's been very disappointing for the draft capital that you invested on him. But T. Higgins, on the games he plays and actually finishes, has been excellent this year. He just goosed. I think he was on the snap count, and I don't think they conveyed that he was going to be on the snap count.
16% of the snaps. So
yeah, only played 16% of the snaps. I don't think that was sent out to everybody before the game, so most people started him and got zeros in their lineup. So after a disappointing week the week before, and now a goose in their lineup, people might be ready just to move on. Not to mention the lore of the Bengals being this great team is kind of worn off since they've started pretty slow. You could get T. Higgins pretty cheap, and I certainly will.
Yeah, off of this game, I'm trying to acquire T. Higgins. I mean, in his career, when he's played snaps with Jamar Chase, he's averaged more fantasy points. And if their manager thinks that Jamar Chase is going to come back and T. Higgins is going to sort of fade into the background, then I try to acquire him. This one might be a harder one just because he did goose. He looks just straight up like it's sort of obvious that he was injured, but I still think he has this league-winning potential of, he could absolutely be the number 1 receiver at the end of the year on this team. So I like T. Higgins. And that leads me to my next buy, which is Kyler Murray. Now, I know you're going to like this one. Kyler Murray, he's done okay, but the feeling that people get, they're disappointed. I'm seeing people's reactions online is that they're generally disappointed with Kyler Murray's production, but he's been serviceable, and he's getting DeAndre Hopkins back. And if they can figure out their first half offense or first quarter offense or whatever you want to call it, then, add that quarter or that half, do what they're doing in the second half. If they can figure it out, then he has a lot of upside. And with DeAndre Hopkins coming back, I think that's going to be one of the pieces that helps them figure that out. So there's a path forward, to helping him get it going. And another piece is that he probably should be running the ball more. And that's one of the most valuable things in fantasy because, you get a lot more points for running the ball. So when DeAndre Hopkins comes back, that's going to help him out. And if he can get running the ball more, I think he has absolute elite upside. And you could probably acquire him pretty cheap right now. So I just like the value.
Yeah. If anybody knows my Twitter, you'll know I'm the number 1 Kyler defender in the world. I go to war for this man on Twitter every single day.
True.
Shout out Rude Chat on Twitter. You know what I'm talking about. So I really like Kyler as a buy. I might be a little biased. I am a Cardinals fan. But you are a 49ers fan, which means your opinion is unbiased because you should hate Kyler, and
True.
yet you're saying to buy him. So I guess my question would be is what type of trades are you looking to acquire Kyler with? What quarterbacks would you trade for Kyler?
Yeah, so I think if you have one of these middling quarterbacks, like honestly Aaron Rodgers, even Geno off of a hot stretch of games, I'm looking to make that upgrade. Tom Brady, like if I could upgrade these like sort of back half of the top 12 quarterbacks and maybe package him or just flip him straight up for Kyler, I think that's a huge upgrade. Or even if you have someone like Burrow or Herbert and someone thinks that those quarterbacks are better than Kyler, if you could do a 2-for-2 where you're upgrading another piece, I think that those are pretty much lateral moves, and I would like to make an upgrade and then just make a lateral move at quarterback.
Yeah, I could definitely see that playing out. So I guess we'll just lead into my last buy, which would be Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders has looked pretty great this year. He didn't look super subpar or super great against Arizona, but surprisingly enough, at least going into last week's game, the Cardinals were actually top 5 against the top 5 rushing defense in the NFL, which surprises the heck out of me as a Cardinals fan. We were a sieve last year for running backs. This year, it's looked great, especially with Rashard Lawrence at defensive tackle, which looks like he could be making a return this week to our lineup. But we held Miles Sanders to 58 yards, which is a down game for him. I think he only scored 7 or 7.5 half PPR points. Unfortunate for him, Jalen Hurts had 2 1-yard QB sneak touchdowns, which sort of vultured him. If one or both of those would have went to Miles Sanders, he would have had an absolute monster day. But the Eagles' offensive line is great. It's even when it's missing pieces, it's still a top 5 offensive line in the league. Philly gets up often, so they run the ball a ton. They are great offense, so there should be tons of scoring opportunities. These are the type of running backs you need to look for that are on good offenses with good offensive lines that score a lot, because those are going to give you the most opportunity and most high-value touches in the red zone.
Yep, and I mean, he's just a really good player. Throughout his career, he's never had a year with less than 4.5 yards per carry. He's continuing that this year. He's got more touchdowns per game this year. He's looking like he's going to get more touchdowns than he's ever gotten on a season. That's been like his main, weak point. But also, if you look at last year, he was lucky if he got 10 carries. And this year, he hasn't been below 13 carries. So that was the first game. He had 13 carries, and that's the lowest he's been. He's been going up in snaps every single week. First game, 52%. Then 53%, then 59%, then 67%, and last week, 74%. Even though it was a down game, he still had 15 for 58 on the ground and 3 targets. I like the workload. I like the snaps going up. He's very talented, and I don't see them really shying away from Miles Sanders with the success he's had. So that's an absolute buy for me. And then I have one more, and that's Jaylen Waddle. It's very obvious why to buy Jaylen Waddle with Tua being out, but if you could get a panicked manager to sell Jaylen Waddle right now off of one okay game, it was 4 for 102, and 2 pretty bad games, 2 for 39 and 3 for 23. Like that just doesn't look good against Cincinnati and the Jets. Like you still would expect better with Tyreek Hill still putting up pretty good numbers on those weeks. So I think you could get some panicked managers right now to sell you Jaylen Waddle. I still think he's probably top 10 or 12 rest of season at the wide receiver position. So if you can get good value and you're acquiring a top 12 receiver, I think I would do that. And,
I'm huge on this one. Yeah, I'm big on this one. So a lot of these guys, both buys and sells, we both agree on. So we're trying to give different players here, so we're not just both giving the same player. But right. I really like this one as well. So let's go on and move into our sells. Sells, honestly, were hard to come by for us this week. I mean, too many players are just still underperforming that we'd rather just hold than sell, or not enough big name players are coming off performances that are deserving to sell. So honestly, sells for us were super hard this week. So we're just going to give you a few. So one that I think is a good sell would probably be Taysom Hill. And let me preface that that's only if you have players in your league that think he's going to score 40-plus points every week. If they think Taysom Hill has just unlocked the cheat code and that he's going to be a top 3 or top 5 tight end rest of season, ship him off for any starting caliber player you can. So I personally have Taysom Hill in one league. I picked him up. I traded Tyler Higbee away, and I'm starting Taysom Hill as my only tight end. Well, that's pretty scary because A, what if they revoke his tight end eligibility, which could happen at any minute, and then you're just up a creek without a paddle to tight end. And then B, this has been his best game so far, and that's with everybody out. Jameis Winston was out. Jarvis Landry was out. Michael Thomas was out. Chris Olave got knocked out.
Halfway.
I believe in the first half, late in the first half. So they literally had no one left. It was the Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara show. So this is likely the best scenario you're going to have for Taysom Hill all year when all those dudes come back, when Jameis comes back and all the receivers come back. He's likely not going to see as much work. I do think he's still going to be a threat on the goal line. I mean, the percent he succeeds as turning those into touchdowns is literally an anomaly in the NFL, if you need to look it up. But if you have someone that values him as a top 5 tight end, I would definitely sell.
Yeah, so it's tricky, right? So, he did just score a lot of points, and he got a lot of touchdowns in real life, meaning he probably is going to get a little more work going forward for the team. Yeah. But that's another reason that you could sell him because there's a lot to believe in here. The thing is, I don't think there's any world where Taysom Hill doesn't have half of his games be duds for the rest of the year. I mean, that's pretty much what it's going to be. With the amount of snaps he's getting, there's just going to be games where the running plays that he's designed up don't work, and he just runs for 5 yards and doesn't get a touchdown, right? Which everything worked for him last week. Like you said, there was a lot of injuries. I think it's going to be a lot of hit and miss for him going forward. And there's 2 names that I'm looking to get. I'm looking to flip Taysom Hill for. And if you need to package him with somebody to get these guys, I would make that move. You can't get Kelsey and you can't get Andrews. I mean, you could try, but probably not possible. I'm looking to get either Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz. Those are 2 tight ends who are putting up consistent numbers, and I expect to continue for the most part. And if you can get consistent production at the tight end position, I would make that move because, that helps your stability on your team.
I would add one more name to that list, and for me, that would be David Njoku. David Njoku has been very, very solid this year for tight end, and it's someone you likely got off the waiver. So I would certainly flip Taysom Hill for David.
Yeah, I would flip that. I would do that straight up, though. I wouldn't package anybody to get that.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, I like that move. For sells, I have Najee Harris as a sell. This would be a sell low, so a little bit of and you probably drafted him as a first-round pick, so that is a little disappointing. It's been a disappointing year, but we're now hearing talks that Jaylen Warren is going to get more involved on third downs. The passing work is not really going to be there the way it was last year for Najee Harris. A lot of people like us were saying in the offseason that was probably going to be the case, but there was still the hope. I think that hope is pretty much dead. He's not going to get the same passing load that he got last year, and that's what helped him get RB1 status. Now you pair that with a horrible offensive line and a struggling offense and a struggling team in general that's going to be trailing. It's not looking great for Najee. So if you can still get some of that draft, just a percentage of that draft capital value, if someone still looks at him as a first-round pick and is like, maybe there's a chance, then you need to sell somebody on that hope right now. I'm looking to get consistent running back production, and not to mention he's somewhat dealing with injury, so there's that concern too. Some names that I would look for, obviously we talked about DeAndre Swift. I'm looking to acquire players like that, even if you have to package them. Even Dameon Pierce, I would look to acquire Dameon Pierce. If you could make that trade, I might make it. It's sad, but at this point, I think that's a move I'm willing to make.
I think you would have to package pretty.
Really?
Pretty
Can't
tough,
even get him.
yeah.
Dang.
David
Montgomery.
3 straight touchdowns.
I would get David Montgomery. I would maybe rather have Ken Walker. That one's close.
Najee or Travis Etienne?
I would still go Najee. I said Etienne is a buy, but I don't know. That's actually really close.
Yeah.
I would try to get a little more out of that trade. I might get another
Najee
player
or
there.
Miles Sanders?
I would take Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I would definitely take Najee or J.K. Dobbins.
Oh, definitely Najee. Dobbins a little iffy with the workload. So
Well, he's still working through his own injury problems. He's coming
that's
back.
true.
But he's had a better game than Najee's had all year already. So.
But if I'm making a trade like that, and I'm trading a player who's a starter, then I'm looking for somebody who's getting a lot of snaps. So
yeah,
another player is Aaron Jones. If you can flip him and somebody to get Aaron Jones, I think Aaron Jones is a more talented player on a better offense. I like Aaron Jones a lot. So
my next sell is it's definitely going to be a sell high or a sell at cost. It's going to be Mike Williams. So if anyone's ever had Mike Williams on their team, they know how big of a roller coaster he is. He will score 1 point and 30 points and then 5 points and then 25 points and then so sporadic. But he's a great player, so if you don't want to trade him, I completely understand. But with Keenan Allen coming back, Mike Williams has saw a 29% target share the past 2 weeks. I do not think that's sustainable. When Keenan Allen comes back, he is and has been Justin Herbert's number one read since he's been the starter. And I do think that would continue. Now, obviously, Mike Williams will still have some monster games, but I do think he's going to continue to have some pretty bad games as well. But if you like the boom and bust of Mike Williams, completely understand. But if you can trade him off of back-to-back 25-plus point games, trade him maybe for CeeDee Lamb, trade him maybe package deal for Jamar Chase that's been struggling, package him for one that's really tough for me. Would you rather have Mike Williams or Christian Kirk?
I would rather have Mike Williams, and they're close. They're really close, but I trust that offense, like the production for fantasy, a little more. So
Mike Williams or Cortland Sutton?
I love both of these players. These were my guys going into the season. So that is really hard. I still would lean Mike Williams.
I'd go Sutton there.
Okay.
I'd rather have the alpha, even if the offense is a little bit worse.
Yeah, I think we might be a little bit different here because I have Mike Williams on some teams, and I have a hard time trying to sell him because I know how good he is of a player. Every time they get into the red zone, Herbert's looking his way. It's hard to sell a player with that much upside. If I could move him for a top 10 guy, I don't think he's top 10. I think he's more of a top 15 to top 20 range. So yeah, if I could move him or package him and get a Amon-Ra St. Brown, I would make that move. But I think that's going to be hard.
Mike Williams or Hollywood Brown?
Oh my gosh.
With D-Hop coming back next week.
Yeah, that's probably a move you could actually make. If you proposed Mike Williams,
players are getting their number one options in their offense back.
True. If you propose Mike Williams for Hollywood, I think it would get accepted. I think the Hollywood manager, a lot of people seeing that D-Hop's coming back probably would make that move. But I mean, that's sort of a lateral move. I don't know if I think in PPR that I would rather have Hollywood. I think there's going to be more volume there, but I don't know, man. If that player's in your flex though, I love the boom potential of Mike Williams still. So I have a hard time selling him personally, but to each his own.
Yeah.
Another player I want to sell right now is Jeff Wilson. I mean, if you need the running back and you have Elijah Mitchell, I'm not selling him because that's a perfect pairing. But if you just picked him off the waivers and he's sort of a flex option or a backup running back for bye weeks, I would try to flip him right now to a desperate manager and get a good piece. He's been performing every week. He's a pretty good player on a pretty good rushing offense, but his time is limited. So if you could sell him right now to a desperate manager needing a running back, then I think he's a perfect package trade addition. You take one of these players, you add Jeff Wilson, and you make an upgrade. I'm currently trying to flip Geno Smith and Jeff Wilson to get a quarterback upgrade, and I would make moves like that where you're upgrading one of your skill positions.
Yeah, couldn't say it any better. If you have Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson, just keep them.
Yeah.
You can use one or the other the rest of the year. If you don't, definitely trade. If you can turn in an expiring asset into a season-long asset, you got to do it 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, and it's only if you can afford it. Like if you need a win now and you are bad at running back, just keep him, or try to trade, or you could try to trade him for a running back. But other than that, I just think he's a good package trade target for those who don't need him too bad.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, are there any more sells that you have?
That's it for me.
All right, well, I have one quick mention, and that's Michael Carter. I don't think he's worth a lot, but he's another one of these package trade guys. He just got 2 touchdowns, and I don't see this continuing at all. I think he got super lucky that Breece Hall fell down on the 1-yard line twice, and he came in and got touchdowns. So I don't think he has much value. He's one of these like end of your bench like drop considerations. So just throw him into a trade and see if anything sticks.
Yeah.
All right,
it's the Breece show.
Yeah, Breece Hall. We told you to trade for him, so hope you did. All right, that's it for our buys and sells, our trade advice for the week. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers, so yep, it's free. Just hit subscribe. Anyways, we've been the Fantasy Bros, and we're out.